In Power Query, you can do manipulations to a table or a list before you expand it, which is what I'll show today. To begin with, I have two tables where I simply have a date column and then a random column here. I've also added the name of my table, which is because I'm working in Power BI. Normally I'd be using the excel.currentWorkbook function to get all tables, but I can't do that in Power BI. So this is just an extra step I have to add to make it more visible. So at this point I can simply add a new query where I first want to grab the current date because I want to filter my tables on the date, which would be I only want to include rows where the date is less than or equal to today, which means I'll get all the rows from this table, but not these two rows from the first table. To get today's date, I'm going to be using the local now function, which will give me both a date and a time, which I don't want. But then I can use the date from function to convert a date time into just the date portion. And at that point I can do an append. So I can just say table.combine. Now combine them. And now here I have to do that little extra step so that I get the same functionality as I would in Excel, which is just to highlight the name column and then group by. And here I want all my rows. Again, this is just an extra step because I want to have a table inside my columns in order to do my functions. So at this point I have my table, which is sitting in a row, and I want to extract first the date column, so I have that in a separate column here. So I'll add a new step with a custom column where I want to filter this date column on my today's date, which I forgot to rename that step, which I need to go into the advanced editor because I don't want that to be called source, which is just to list because I'm acting on a list and I want to select only certain rows. And what is the list I'm acting on? Well, that is the table inside the all column, and then inside the all column, which is a table, I need to extract the dates column. And what is my selection function? Well, that is each row should be each row within my date column within my all table. It's a little confusing. And that needs to be less than today's date. I'm saying that for each row within my date column within my all table, I only want to select those rows where the value is less than or equal to today's date. And again, in this table, I have the 30th and the 29th are excluded. So I only have two values, but in this table I have all 4 dates because they are less than today. And from here, I just want to calculate the maximum date because now I've taken a table and converted that into a filtered list, and then I can use another list function on this list, where normally you could do this by using the statistics button here, but it's grayed out because normally you'd have a column like this where you could then use the statistics to get a maximum or minimum. I don't think it wants to do that on dates for some reason that I'm not sure about, but that's not important because I can just add that with a custom column. Again, I want to use the list max function to get my filtered on today. That is my list. And then from here I want to say that this should be type integer, because that way I only have one step instead of having to add a change type step. This grabs my maximum date from my filtered list instead of from the whole table. And at this point I can do another function just to show again what you can actually do, which is the text combine function. Actually, I don't want to add a new column. I want to convert the filtered on today column into a combined column, which means I need the function transform columns. And notice that this is plural because it expects, or at least allows me to work on multiple, which takes a table as its first argument, and then it takes a list of operations. So I'm going to pass that as a list. So in here, what column am I acting on? I'm acting on the filtered on today column. And what do I want to do? I want to say for each, now I messed that up again. I want to say for each of my rows, I want to use the text combine function. And this takes a list as its argument, but I need texts as list. And right now I have just a list. So I first need to convert my list into text. So I'll use the list transform function. And this takes also a list, which is just my current value, so an underscore. And then I'm using the text from function. So I'm saying I am taking a list, which is the list in my current row of the filter today column. My transformation is to convert the list into text. And then I can use text combine on this conversion. So it's just converting a list into text. And then my separator is just going to be semicolon space. I also want that to be type text. So now I have my original table, which I can then delete because I don't need anything else. Right now I don't care about this A column, it was just to have some more. But you would probably want to expand this or grab multiple values, so you can use the exact same logic here. So now I have a column that grabbed my max date after I filtered my table, and I have a column that has a concatenation of all of my rows in the date column after I filtered it. So just to keep on showing more stuff you can do, I'm going to add an empty step just because that will make it a little easier to understand what's going on. Now we're working on something new. And here I want to first go back to my filter on today column, because this isn't what I called my steps in my notes, which is a very good thing to always change these names. Here I just want to expand my list. Right now I've just grabbed the table so that we can see what's going on more clearly. And what I'm then going to do is to expand my list, which takes a table as its first argument, which was that prior step, because we're ignoring these in-between steps. And what is my column? That is the filtered on today column. And now I've expanded that. And this is functionally the same as if we just go back to before, because this is just the function that you get if you say equal that step and then you click on this double arrow button and say expand to new rows. This is the same function as I just typed in, but I don't want to have an extra step where I just refer to a prior step. If you also just want to extract the maximum, you would need to sort this in descending, and then I can say, because I have a column here with the name of the tables, I can say remove duplicates, and this will also extract just the maximum. And this would be sort of the normal way to do things if you don't know how to do this. These other steps where I filter my list and so on. Here I want to transform the table before I expand it. So once again I'm adding a new step where we can see what's going on in the last step. So we'll say again transform column, because I want to transform the all column instead of creating a new column and then having to delete this table, because that's a little pointless to do multiple things. That was called remove duplicates, and again I'm only acting on one column. And what is that column? That is called the all column. And my operation is, I need a comma, and then my operation is for each row inside of the table in the all column. It's a little, you have to keep some things in your mind at the same time. I want to say table, select rows. And what table am I acting on? Well, the one that I just selected, which is the all table. And then I want to say that the dates column down here should be less than or equal to today's date, the value of my step up here. And then now I've also filtered my table and I can expand it just as normal. You could just say expand all, and I don't need the name because I have that in that column. Now you get these values back. These are some different ways where you can work on tables or lists before you expand them. And notice how here I've already got the max value after I filtered. It looks like this remove duplicates didn't exactly work the way I expected it to, because I wanted the maximum date, and the 19th is not the maximum date, that is actually the smallest date. So Google managed to help me out here, which I found a website called Gorilla BI, where he says that basically I need to maintain my sort order, which apparently got removed when I removed duplicates. So instead of grabbing my maximum from table 1, which is the 28th, and the maximum from table 2, which is the 27th, it just grabbed the 19th from table 2, which is not the maximum. And if you wrap the sort rows function in this table buffer function, then it maintains the sort order. And the way I understand it is it basically loads the table into memory, which will make things faster if you need to do a lot of operations, but it's not a function I've had to use before. Right now for my uses, all it does is it maintains the sort order. So when I go down to remove duplicates, it actually does what I expected to, which is to grab the first value. So that was all from here. Yep,